This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Bruchim Haba, and welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha on Parshas, Behar Bechukosai, the Ben Lo Ashri, the Tzaddik Ranana on Parshas Behar Bechukosai. Well, the Tzaddik of Ranana begins with the pasuk in the beginning of Behar, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Behar Sinai Limar, and he explains as follows. The Kedushas Levi of Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev explains the first mission Perkei Avos. Moshe kibel Torah mi Sinai. He explicates this Mishnah as a question. Moshe received the Torah, but Moshe is the Anav Mikol Adam. Why didn't he defer? Like by Kabbalah HaTorah, Moshe said, Mi anoichi asher elech al paroi. Who am I? Why didn't Moshe say, Ribbon Shalom, give the Torah through Aaron, who's much more worthy than I am? Moshe kibel Torah, the answer is Mi Sinai. The reason he was Makabel Torah, he looked at Sinai. Sinai was the lowest, the most distinguished, the mountain that was least notable of all the mountains, and yet Hashem gave it on Sinai specifically because of its humility. So Moshe said, me too. I'm also the least important. I'm also the least notable among all of man. And if God selected Sinai, then I am proper, I am fitting to receive the Torah because of my lowliness. So likewise we could read this pasuk. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe. God spoke to Moshe. Why did Moshe allow himself to be the recipient of the message? Why didn't he say, speak to someone greater than me? The answer is, Behar Sinai. He learned the lesson from Har Sinai that God sometimes selects the most humble, and says the Ben La Ashri, as he often does, Leka midi deloi ramizi ba'iraisa. This is one of the principles of the Ben La Ashri, that all the principles of Shas and Tarsha B'al Peh are found alluded to in the Chumash, and here we have the principle that Moshe, so to speak, is bothered why God is selecting him, and the answer is he learns it from Har Sinai. Offering number 2, V'shavsa ha'aretz Shabbos Hashem. The earth should rest a Shabbos to Hashem. What do you mean the earth should rest? It should say, Tishbesu, you should rest. The earth doesn't rest. The command is Amen. So the Ben Lashri explains this based on a principle that is based on the Tikkunei Zohar, as well as the Baal Shem, and that is one who is Mechalel Shabbos by doing Malacha, even though for most people Gehenna ceases on Shabbos. For such a person who desecrates the Shabbos, Gehenna is active for him even on Shabbos. Now the word Oretz could refer to the guf, like the Gemara in Sanhedrin says on Daf Tzadik Alpha and Beis, on the pasuk Yikra El Shamayim Me'al. This refers to the soul. V'el Ha'aretz, this refers to the body. And the Toldos Yaakov Yosef in this week's Parsha, he explains many ways that Shemitah refers to Shabbos as well. So we read the pasuk V'shavsa Ha'aretz. The guf should rest on Shabbos, because if the guf rests on Shabbos, Shabbos Hashem, then the neshama will have respite on Shabbos as well, because even if the neshama will be liable to the Gehenna, nevertheless it will rest, because V'shav Saharetz. If the guf rests, then the neshama will have respite in the Olam HaEmes on Shabbos. We move on to the next offering, Parak Chav Hei Pasuk Yud, Ukerasem Derar. The Baal HaTurim points out, and we spoke this out in our Baal HaTurim All Parsha Shir, that the word Dorar is Gematria 410, that the true freedom of the Jewish people was when the first temple stood. That's when we were Chavshi Mishibud Malchios. Well, the pasuk continues, says the Ben Ashri, V'shavtem ishalachuzasai. It predicts you will return to your ancestral place. This refers to the Jewish people's return to the temple. V'shavtem ishalachuzasai. This refers to that which the pasuk says. Yovel hi tihya lachem. Tihya is Gematria 420. You'll return to your ancestral location, and then you will have the Mikdash for another 420 years. Tihya is Gematria 420. Now we go to Parak Chafei Pasuk Memtes. Oy doi doi, oy ben doi doi yigalenu. Or your uncle, or the son of your uncle will redeem it. Says the Ben La'ashri, the Rashi Tevos and Sefer Tevos of this pasuk add up to 102. Or the gematria of Beis Chaf Becha 22 Pei. This is indicating Becha through the Tarsha B'chsav, which is taught through the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, Pei and the Tarsha Bal Peh, Yigalenu, we will be redeemed. As the Medrash says in Vayikra Rabbah, Gam ki yitnu bagoyim, even if you will be placed among the goyim, Chazal Darshan, Ein kol hagoliyos meskansois ela b'schos ha-mishnah. Okay, we now move on to offering number 5, Parshas Behar, Es Shabbos Soisai Tishmoiru, Rashi Tevois Eshes, one's wife. Says the Ben Lashri, this could be explained based on the Gemara Ksubas that the oina, the time that a Talmid Chacham visits his wife with a marital visit, is Friday night. Oinas Talmidei Chachamim Beleilei Shabbos Kodesh. Now the Magen Avram and Simon Reish Pei has a very interesting question. Those who eat chulin b'tahara, those who are careful to eat chulin in a state of purity, how are they mekayim the mitzvah of oina on Shabbos? How could they live with their wives? They would then become toivel. They'll become a tvol yom. They're not fully tahar until the evening, and in that case, they can't be mekayim mitzvahs shalosh sudos because they eat chulin b'tahara. And the Magen Avram says that when the Beis Hamikdash stood, where there was an isser of eating kodshim, so then you were not allowed to eat chulin unless one was tahar as a tvol yom. But bizman hazeh, where there's no achilas kodshim, you're allowed to eat chulin even if one is not tahar. And even when the temple stood on a day that a kohen did not want to eat kodshim, then they did not have to be careful to eat chulin b'tahara. This is what the Torah is being meramis to us. Shabbos soisai tishmoiru. This refers to the mitzvah of Shabbos of Eshes, referring to the mitzvah of oina, of being with one's wife. As Shabbos soisai tishmoiru, one is permitted and encouraged to fulfill the mitzvah of oina Friday night Eshes. However, umikdashi, but yet tiro, you have to be afraid of kodshim, not to partake of kodshim on that day. Otherwise, you will have to refrain from Eshes and you will not be able to fulfill the mitzvah of oina. We now move on to 5 offerings on Parshas Bechukosai. V'hisig lachem dayish. Says about the Ben Lashvi. The word dayish are the letter shakai. V'hisig lachem shakai, through the name of Hashem, Es. That Es, Aleph Taf, represents Limud HaTorah, which is taught from Aleph to Taf. Through the learning of Torah, Aleph to Taf, V'hisig lachem dayish es a batzir. Batzir can be spelled b'yetzer. The b'yetzer refers to the word yetzer spelled malay. Yud vav daled, tzadi daled yud, reish yud shin, which are soifei tevois shakai. Meaning, when the person learns Torah and he has the name of Hashem on him, then the Yetzer Hara will be transformed into Toiv through the Koyach HaTorah. This is what it means. Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. The Torah is the spice to sweeten the Yetzer Hara and bring him along to help you perform mitzvahs. Well, says the Ben La'ashri, offering number 2, Parshas Bechukosai, Ve'achaltem lachmechem l'soiva. You will eat your bread to satiety. This could be explained based on what the Mekubalim say. Why do we dip hamoitzi into melach? The Gemara in Sanhedrin says on Daf Tzadi Daled. Why in the pasuk in Yeshaya? Lemarbeha misra l'shaloim keitz. The word lemarbe, the mem in lemarbe is a mem soifis, a mem susuma. It should be a mem psucha, an open mem, which it typically is in the middle of a word, but there the word lamarbe is spelled with a final mem. Chazal say, Hashem wanted to make Chizkiyahu Mashiach, and the Midas Hadin said before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you made so many nisim for Chizkiyahu, and he never sang Shira before you, and you want to make him Mashiach, therefore the mem was silenced, was sealed shut, to show that we will still be in Golos, Rachalan Alatzlan. So too, the Mekubalim say, when it comes to lechem, lechem has a final mem. That final mem indicates golos. So we dip it in melach that has an open mem. The mem is a mem pesucha, and then we transform lechem to lachmechem. Lechem with a closed mem to lachmechem that has an open mem in it. The open mem represents the geula, or the midah of malchus, the seventh sphira. So we read the pasuk now like this: Va'achaltem, when the geula comes, about lachmechem, your bread will not be lechem with a sealed mem, but lachmechem with an open mem. You will eat it lasoiva, can be read lasheva, through the midah of malchus, where God's malchus will be revealed, that it should come b'mheir v'yameinu. Number 8. Eighth offering on Behar Bechukosai. Third on Bechukosai, v'his halachti b'soichechem. And the pasuk also says, v'his halachti ba'amitecha. I will walk among you, says God. And David HaMelech says, I will walk in your truth. Well, we know there's a concept, the Gemara says in Sukkah Daf Nun Beis, Yitzroi Shaladim Eskabra Labachal Yom, the Yitzhahara prevails over a person daily, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not help us, we will not be able to overcome him. This is what the pasuk means. V'his halachti ba'amitecha. David HaMelech says, I will walk in your truth. But when could we be confident that we will walk in God's truth? That's only v'his halachti b'soichechem, if God walks among us, if the Rebbeinu Shalom is among us, then we could be confident that we will be able to prevail and overcome the Yetzirah. Offering number 4 on Bechukosai, Rashi says, Bahala. What is Bahala? Perek Chavav Pasuk Tezayin, a makkah that confounds people. What is the makkah? Makas Moisan, a makkah of death. Look in the Sifsei Chachamim, he offers 2 pshatim. Says the Ben La'ashri that he would interpret, Moisan refers to the death of the Gentiles. But when they experience this Misa, they then create pretexts and accusations that we caused it. And they create libels that we poisoned the wells, and like many of the libels that have been hurled against us throughout history. And finally, we have the comments of the Baal HaTurim, Perek Chavav, Pasuk Lamed Gimel, Ve'eschem ezara b'agayim, and you I will scatter among the nations, V'harikoisi acharechem charev, and I will unleash the sword against you. Says the Baal HaTurim, we have elsewhere the phrase V'harikoisi, and that is V'harikoisi lachem bracha, ad belidai. What is the connection between V'harikoisi lachem bracha ad belidai and V'harikoisi acharechem charev? Says the Ben Lashi, it is well known that much of the troubles of the Jewish people is because of our nature to indulge in ostentatious clothing and build ostentatious homes. Says the Ben Lashi, especially Nashim, who could provoke and incite the taiva of those who gaze at them. Well, the pasuk says like this: "Ve'eschem azara bagoyim," and you I will scatter among the Gentiles. And because v'harikoisi lachem bracha ad b'idai, because of the great bracha, sometimes Hashem showers upon us. V'harikoisi achrechem charev. That, unfortunately, is sometimes the cause that the goyim will unleash the sword against us, as it provokes their wrath. As the Gemara says in Chagiga Tesamid Beis, Ya'i aniyusa lebarta de Yaakov. Poverty is worthwhile for the daughters of Jacob. That's the connection between the V'harikoisi acharechem charev and V'harikoisi lachem bracha. Through Hashem pouring His blessing on us, sometimes that is a cause of charev. We hope the Rebbeinu Shalom should pour upon all of us V'harikoisi lachem bracha ad belidai, in a way that we can act with great humility. I want to wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos, Parshas Behar Bechukosai, Shabbos Chazak. Be'ezus Hashem next week, the new launch of all Parsha on Sefer Devarim. Wishing everybody bracha, v'hatzlacha, v'chol tov, selah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.